2022 was certainly a rough year for South Africans and their pockets. Inflation on the rise, several interest rate hikes and a battered economy by load shedding. So what should homeowners and South Africans in general expect for the year ahead? More of the same or perhaps some kind of relief? Newzroom Afrika's Andersen takes a look.
The financial picture for the year 2023 has many South Africans worried. 2022 was hard enough, and the threats and likelihood of more interest rate hikes are making the next few months a bitter pill to swallow. With interest and repo rates having dropped drastically during the height of the pandemic, many South Africans tried their hands at buying property for the first time. With the rate hikes over the last 2 years though, those homeowners are now having to fork out thousands of rand more every single month on their bond. And unfortunately, that has caught many off guard. Data from FNB's property barometer at the end of last year shows just how much the demand to purchase new property has decreased since the toughest lockdown restrictions were first ended in June 2020. FNB says it is now seeing a 33% drop in bond applications from those earning less than 450,000 rand per year. Even those earning much more than that have been applying for home loans much less. In November last year, it was 20% less, to be specific. So for those who bought homes, are their monthly bond payments likely to go up again this year? And if so, how many times? Momentum Investments economist Sanisha Pakrasamy says interest rates are likely to keep climbing for the next while.
We are expecting that we will see a peak in the repo rate in the first quarter of this year. We're actually looking for another 50 basis points worth of interest rate hikes, getting that peak to around 750, which is higher than where interest rates were prior to the pandemic.
A grim picture, but where and when can South Africans hope to see some relief? No matter how small. According to Pakrasamy, we all have to make it to the end of the new year first.
We've seen inflation coming down to just below 7.5% in the latest print for November. And going forward into the remainder of this year, we're expecting that some of those inflationary pressures will abate. And going into the back end of this year, we may actually see the South African Reserve Bank starting to reverse course, and we might even see an interest rate cut before the year is up.
Okay, so aside from property and bond repayments, what about all this talk of a recession, possibly hitting here at home in 2023? And with years of load shedding piling up and a constant stage 6 over the last few days, is growth for the economy even possible? Pakrasamy believes that local dynamics mean that the risk of recession is very low. Despite that, minuscule levels of growth are expected, and that's still a very big problem.
A very pedestrian growth outlook for this year. We really are, teetering on the edge of having an expansion in the economy versus a contraction in the economy. But the number one risk in our view is the continued incidence of load shedding, and at quite high levels. And even though we are seeing more businesses and more households having alternative forms of energy, these are coming through at a much higher cost. So this does actually impact the bottom line for businesses at the end of the day, and it also dents consumers' disposable income.
So what's the next move? According to Pakrasamy and other economists like her, the best advice South Africans can follow is to hold on to their investments in property as long as they can, and not sell off in a panic. And while 2023 will be another harsh year, the last quarter will hopefully bring some much needed relief. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Andersen in Johannesburg.